Imagine being a young artist in Paris, struggling to find your place in the art world. Suddenly, you receive an offer from a reclusive billionaire to decorate his mansion for Christmas. Sounds like a dream, right? But when Camille Durand starts working with Gabriel Lefèvre, she soon realizes there's much more at play than just decoration. As Christmas approaches, intense emotions stir between them, and Gabriel's past secrets begin to surface. Can love overcome class barriers, or will their differences push them apart forever? Stay until the end and discover how Christmas in Paris can be the perfect backdrop for an unexpected love story full of surprises. Don't miss this tale full of mystery, passion, and plot twists. Paris, the city of lights, was getting ready for Christmas. The streets were lit up with thousands of twinkling lights, and the shop windows exuded the festive spirit. But for Camille Durand, a young artist, Christmas was just another ordinary day, with no high expectations. She lived day by day, struggling to stand out in the competitive art world, unsure if she'd ever make a name for herself. But then, on a cold winter's day, she received a phone call that would change her life. Camille Durand. The voice on the other end asked, firm and cold, "I'm Gabriel Lefèvre, and I would like to hire you to decorate my mansion for Christmas." Camille could hardly believe it. Gabriel Lefèvre, the reclusive billionaire, owner of businesses and properties around the world, a man known for both his wealth and his distance from the social world. He never appeared in public and rarely got involved in any events. How did he know her name? And why would he choose her, a local artist still trying to find her place? I didn't quite understand, Mr. Lefèvre, are you serious? Camille asked, trying to hide the surprise in her voice. Yes, I am. I need someone with your talent to transform my house for Christmas. The job is yours if you accept. I expect to see a bold, creative concept. The payment will be generous, of course. Before she could process what was happening, the contract was sealed. Camille remained silent for a moment, the reality of what had just happened sinking in slowly. She needed the job, but being so close to such a powerful and reclusive man stirred both excitement and fear in her. That night, as she lay down to sleep, she couldn't stop thinking about what the future held. An opportunity like this, working for Gabriel Lefèvre, could be the breakthrough she needed for her career. But it was also impossible to ignore the fact that, stepping into the world of a billionaire, she would have to deal with much more than just decoration. The next day arrived too quickly, and Camille found herself at the entrance of Gabriel Lefèvre's mansion, an impressive building situated in an exclusive neighborhood of Paris. The large golden iron doors slowly opened upon her arrival, revealing a majestic interior, with crystal chandeliers and hallways that seemed to stretch for miles. The opulence was visible in every detail, and Camille felt small in the face of such grandeur. She was escorted by a maid to the grand hall, where she finally met Gabriel Lefèvre. He was standing with his back to her, gazing out the window, his expression serious and distant. When he turned to face her, Camille was struck by the power of his presence. He was younger than she had imagined, yet the authority he exuded was undeniable. "Welcome, Camille." Gabriel's voice was deep, yet somehow empty, as though he was always in control of his emotions. Camille tried to compose herself, though her nervousness was evident. "Thank you for the opportunity, Mr. Lefèvre. I'm excited to get started." He observed her closely for a moment, as though evaluating every word and gesture. "I hope you can transform this house. Christmas here has always been somewhat lifeless. I'm looking for something more." Camille swallowed hard. "I'll do my best. I have some ideas that I expect to see something out of the ordinary." He interrupted her, his words sharp. "This isn't the place for ordinary ideas, Camille. I hired you because I believe you have the ability to create something extraordinary. A chill ran down Camille's spine, but she didn't allow herself to be intimidated. She wasn't here to be underestimated. Understood. I'll begin working on my proposals immediately. Gabriel nodded and, without another word, turned away. He seemed completely oblivious to the fact that Camille was here, about to transform his home for Christmas. She, on the other hand, knew that this job meant more to her than anything else. This was her big break. But as he walked away, Camille couldn't shake the strange feeling of discomfort. There was something more behind his coldness. Something she could barely understand, but felt deeply. The following days were a mix of excitement and pressure for Camille Durand. She had creative freedom to transform Gabriel Lefèvre's mansion into a Christmas spectacle, but the expectations he had for her work were high. He didn't give many details about what he wanted, but the intensity of his gaze and the demands in his words made it clear that he would accept nothing less than perfection. Camille spent hours exploring the vast halls of the mansion, deciding how she could incorporate Parisian elegance with the warm spirit of Christmas. She thought about ways to balance golden and silver tones, twinkling candles, and fresh flowers, creating an atmosphere that was both luxurious and cozy. As she decorated, Camille felt Gabriel's presence, even when he wasn't around. He remained silent most of the time, observing her work with attention but saying nothing. Sometimes, he would enter rooms just to check how things were going, always with that impenetrable gaze. His presence, though silent, was undeniably dominant. One afternoon, while she was in the living room arranging the garlands for the grand hallway, Gabriel entered silently, as always. He stood still for a moment, watching her in silence. Camille, feeling the weight of his stare, couldn't help but feel nervous. "Are you placing fresh flowers here?" Gabriel asked, his voice soft but carrying an authority she was still getting used to. Camille turned quickly, slightly surprised by the question. "Yes, I think flowers bring life to the space. Christmas should be warm and joyful, don't you think?" Gabriel observed her for a few more seconds. "I hope the result is different. I want to see something that surprises me. Not just a simple Christmas. Something that truly stands out in this place." "Understood, Mr. Lefèvre. I'll work on it," Camille replied, trying to hide the anxiety she felt. Despite his coldness, Gabriel seemed to genuinely appreciate Camille's effort. Yet, she couldn't help but wonder what he really thought about her work, and more importantly, about the impact she was starting to have on his life. As Christmas approached, Camille and Gabriel spent more time together. On some occasions, he seemed more approachable, though still reserved. During one of the lunches he hosted at the mansion, Gabriel revealed something Camille hadn't expected. "You know I'm not really here to celebrate Christmas, right?" he said, a slight tension in his voice, as they sat at the table, eating. "I don't care for the festivities, but my father always forced me to uphold the traditions." Camille looked at him with interest. She knew Gabriel was a reclusive man, but she knew little about his history. "I thought as a billionaire, Christmas was a big celebration at your house." Gabriel let out a dry laugh. "Maybe in other houses, yes. But my father, he was always stricter about traditions. He always expected more from me than anyone else. For him, Christmas was more about displaying wealth than about togetherness. He never knew how to truly enjoy the season." There was a sadness in his voice that Camille had never heard before. She felt an empathy she didn't know existed. That must be difficult, especially when the celebration is more about fulfilling an obligation than actually celebrating. He looked at her as though assessing her words. "You're right. It's always been like that. I never felt the true joy of Christmas. It was always about being on top, being better than others." Camille felt the weight of what he was saying. He seemed to carry an emotional burden she had never imagined. Gabriel, the billionaire with everything he could want, didn't even have a fraction of the simple warm joy she felt when she thought about Christmas. She realized that, although his life was filled with wealth, what he needed most was real human connection, something she believed she could offer. "I truly hope you have a good experience this Christmas, Gabriel. You deserve it," she said with a sincere smile. Gabriel looked at her, his eyes softening. "I never expected you to be the one to say that to me." Camille smiled, a little surprised. There was something in Gabriel's eyes that she couldn't quite identify, but it gave her an odd feeling that maybe, just maybe, he was beginning to see Christmas in a different way. As Christmas neared, Gabriel Lefèvre's mansion was nearly unrecognizable. Camille worked tirelessly to transform the house into a Christmas spectacle, each space carefully planned to capture the magic of the season. The candles, fresh flowers, and exquisite decorations began to breathe life into the mansion, and the atmosphere was changing. But something else was changing too. Something Camille hadn't anticipated. As the days passed, she began to notice that her attraction to Gabriel was becoming undeniable. He was unlike any man she had ever met, mysterious and distant, but at the same time, there was something in his vulnerability that touched her. He observed her with silent intensity but never spoke openly about his emotions. Camille, in response, tried to maintain some distance, but she felt a growing desire to know more about him. One night, as Camille was adjusting the Christmas lights in a grand hall, Gabriel entered silently. She turned to look, and for a moment, time seemed to stand still. He was standing there, watching her with that intense gaze that left her speechless. "You've done a great job, Camille," he said, his voice soft, but carrying something more. "The house has never felt so alive, even though I still have trouble understanding what Christmas really means." Camille smiled, though she knew he was referring to Christmas in a distant way, without truly understanding its meaning. "I like to think that sometimes, Christmas can teach us to find beauty in the little things." "You have a very special way of seeing the world, Camille," he said, his words full of silent admiration. "I never imagined it was possible to turn something so simple into something so grand." The compliment made Camille blush, but his smile was genuine, and that made her even more uncomfortable. She knew the attraction between them was undeniable, but she didn't want to give in so easily. She had her own dreams and couldn't allow herself to be distracted by a man who, despite being attractive, was so far removed from her world. But as Gabriel walked away, Camille felt that what attracted her most to him was precisely his complexity. There was so much more behind his facade of an arrogant, distant billionaire, something she was starting to want to understand. The big day finally arrived. The mansion was ready for Christmas, and Camille couldn't help but feel satisfied with the work she had done. The candles glowed softly in the hallways, the Christmas trees were decorated with elegance, and the house exuded a warm, welcoming feeling that, for Camille, represented the true spirit of the season. However, the atmosphere between her and Gabriel was more tense than ever. Although both of them felt the growing attraction between them, there was an invisible barrier separating them. Gabriel seemed more distant than ever, his face serious and closed off, while Camille tried not to let herself get emotionally involved. She knew he was a complicated man, and she had her own fears about what a relationship with someone like him could mean for her life. On Christmas Eve, Gabriel finally approached Camille. He was wearing a dark suit, and his imposing figure made him seem even more inaccessible. But that night, something in his expression seemed different. "You made this look magical, Camille." Gabriel's voice was softer than she expected, as if he was genuinely moved by the transformation of the house. She looked at him, surprised by the sincerity in his words. "Thank you, Gabriel. I just wanted this to be something you could truly feel." She hesitated for a moment. "Christmas for me has always been about creating moments and memories with the people we love." Gabriel remained silent, his eyes fixed on her in a way that made her feel like he was truly seeing her, not just as an employee or an artist, but as a real person. "I never knew how to create that kind of connection with Christmas, Camille. But somehow, you've made it happen." There was something in the way he looked at her, something vulnerable she had never seen before. He, the reclusive billionaire, was finally allowing himself to be touched by what she was bringing into his life. Camille felt a wave of compassion for him, but also an irresistible attraction. She knew the line between the professional and the personal was becoming increasingly thin. "Maybe Christmas is a chance for both of us to start seeing things differently, Gabriel," she suggested, trying to hide the intensity of what she felt. "Maybe it's an opportunity for us to start over, free from the ties of the past." He looked at her for a moment, and Camille saw something spark in his eyes. But before he could respond, the sound of a bell interrupted the moment. On Christmas Eve, Camille and Gabriel met again, but the atmosphere between them was heavy. During dinner, the conversation flowed tensely, as if both were avoiding each other, but at the same time, they couldn't ignore what they felt. The unspoken secret between them was clear: mutual attraction, desire, but also the fear of surrendering completely. After dinner, they moved to the main hall, where the grand Christmas tree was lit. The room was filled with twinkling lights, and the soft music playing in the background seemed to contrast with the whirlwind of emotions Camille and Gabriel were experiencing. "Camille!" Gabriel said, turning to her with his intense gaze. "I know that Christmas isn't something I fully understand, but what you've done for this house. It touched me in a way I didn't expect." She looked at him, feeling a mix of vulnerability and anger. "And I don't know what to do with what you're telling me, Gabriel. You say that, but at the same time, you keep me at a distance. You're afraid to surrender, and I don't know if I can keep trying if you're not willing to trust." He stayed silent for a moment, as if processing her words. "I don't know how to trust anyone, Camille. Not after everything that's happened. I shut myself off from the world, and..." He sighed. "I shut myself off from you." She took a step toward him, now closer. "I know what you're feeling. But I can't wait for you to open up to me if I'm the only one trying." The silence between them was heavy. But something seemed to have changed in that moment. Camille felt a wave of compassion for Gabriel and at the same time, a pain in her own heart. They were both ready to give in, but fear in the past still held them back. After the confrontation, Camille and Gabriel distanced themselves for a while, both needing to process what they had said and what they were feeling. Christmas was about to come to an end, and the tension between them still lingered in the air, but something had changed. Both were beginning to realize that, despite the differences in class, life and past, what existed between them was real and could not be ignored. On Christmas morning, Camille decided that she needed to take action. She had spent enough time in Paris to know that her life had more to offer. She couldn't continue being a spectator in her own story. She had to decide whether to leave her feelings for Gabriel behind or if she should surrender to him and what he represented for her. She found Gabriel in the mansion's garden, where he was gazing at the view of the city. When he saw her approaching, something in his gaze changed. He knew she was about to make an important decision, and he also knew that, in some way, he was ready to accept the truth. "Camille," he started, his voice full of expectation. "I don't know what the future holds for us, but I want to try. I want to try to understand what this means. I want to try what we both have." Camille smiled, her eyes sparkling with emotion. "Me too, Gabriel. I also want to try." And in that moment, everything seemed to align. Gabriel's words, the connection they had finally made, and Christmas, which until then had been a time of distance and coldness, now became the mark of a new beginning for both of them. Christmas in Paris, with all its beauty and magic, finally brought Camille and Gabriel what they both needed: a chance to start over. They were ready to leave the past behind and move forward with something more meaningful, more authentic. In the following days, Camille and Gabriel spent more time together, discovering how their lives could intertwine without the barriers of the past. Gabriel began to open up more to Camille, showing her a side of himself he had hidden for years. He took her to learn more about his personal life, and every day, Camille fell more in love with him, but also with Paris, with that magical Christmas, and with the future that now seemed possible. On the night of December 31st, under the lights of the Eiffel Tower, Gabriel looked at Camille, his sincere smile reflected in the city's twinkling lights. "I never imagined Christmas could be like this. Full of new possibilities," Gabriel said, holding her hand. Camille squeezed his hand and smiled. "I never imagined Christmas could be so transformative. For both of us." They kissed under the lights of Paris, certain that, despite all the challenges, they had found something rare: the chance to rewrite their stories together. And so, after so many twists and secrets revealed, Camille and Gabriel finally allowed themselves to live the love they felt for each other. Christmas in Paris, which began with distance and tension, became the start of a new chapter in their lives, full of love, redemption, and new beginnings. But can love between two worlds so different overcome all obstacles? And what does the future hold for Camille and Gabriel after this unexpected twist of fate? If you were moved by this story of passion, secrets, and overcoming, like, share, and comment below with what you thought of the ending. And don't forget to subscribe to the channel for more incredible stories full of twists like this. See you in the next video.